Welcome back to Digging Deep, the podcast where we offer bereavement bites for time-pressed professionals and where we explore the trends, challenges, and stories that are shaping the future of the death care profession in Canada. I'm your host, Heather Kiteley. I'm the president and CEO of GFD and a proud second-generation funeral director. Today, we are recording live from the British Columbia Funeral Association AGM and Conference in Vancouver, British Columbia, an incredible gathering of professionals that are dedicated to advancing the way we support and serve families through every stage of loss. In this episode, we're taking a thoughtful look back at how our profession has changed and what has stood the test of time. We'll revisit some of the most common traditions and rituals that have defined our profession over the decades, and we're going to explore how cultural attitudes towards death, grief, and mourning have shaped the way funerals were conducted in the past and in the future. Before we jump in, if you're enjoying the Digging Deep podcast, please make sure to follow, leave us a comment, and share this episode with someone in your life who might find it valuable. Your support helps us to keep bringing these important conversations to the forefront. Joining me today is Athena Theodorakakis. Did I get that right?
You did.
Pretty close?
That's great.
Athena has been with the BC Funeral Association since 2015, served as chair of the Education and Apprenticeship Committee, finance chair, and is ending her second term as president of the association. And I think that's happening over the next couple of days. Is that right?
Just a few hours.
In just a few hours. There we go. Having a background in tourism and hospitality, Athena found her calling in funeral service in 2005. Her career began at SCI's Forest Lawn and Ocean View Funeral Homes. In 2016, Athena discovered an opportunity to work with Kearney Funeral Services, and she changed paths again in 2022 to assist funeral homes that were experiencing staff shortages on an at-need basis. In April 2024, Athena joined the team at Arbutus Funeral Service in Langley, BC. She is passionate about all things funeral and grateful for every chance to serve others. Welcome, Athena.
Thanks for having me.
We are so excited to have you today.
Excited to be here.
And I'm super stoked about our topic. So I'm like a big funeral service history buff nerd.
Okay.
I love just all of the how the profession evolved. So I'm super excited about our conversation today. So let's kick off with you sharing what you feel what are some of the common traditions or rituals that began sort of in the earlier decades or funeral service at that turn of the century, so sort of 1800s or late 1800s to 1900s through to 1950s, and what in that has persisted or faded over time. So we'll let you kick off with that.
Well, not a historian by nature, but everything funeral related is what I love. I believe that most of funeral service in those time frames were shaped by religion and culture. So we saw a lot of in-home vigils. Yeah. Bodies were taken home for loved ones to gather. We saw more religious ceremonies. We saw more burial. Cremation didn't exist back then.
That's right.
Different mourning patterns, mourning periods, mourning clothing. So in the Victorian era, we saw a lot of photography of decedents with families. Lots of funeral processions, obviously horse carriage. Those things were very prominent in the community. Those are things we don't see as much anymore. We're finding that funeral homes, other event centers, or places of worship are holding the ceremonies and the prayers. Prayers actually aren't even as common as they once used to be.
Yeah.
COVID really changed that, I think, really changed how funeral service was delivered. We also find that cremation, especially in BC, is on the rise.
It's highest in Canada, isn't
it? It is, yeah. Yes. Yeah. We're also not seeing a prescribed mourning pattern for people, as far as I can sort of notice in my daily routine.
Let's talk about that for a second. That's very interesting, this idea of a prescribed mourning period. So in the past, what do you feel that would look like?
I'm gathering it was, again, I don't know a lot of the history, but usually there would be attire that was worn so people knew you were in mourning, periods of 7 days, 49 days, a year even. Yeah. I know that in certain religious or faith-based groups, they have certain
Some of that
requires,
still persists.
Yes, if they're following that.
But so many people are not following any sort of religion today.
Yeah, so some of the more religious ceremonies, family members may not be participating, but their loved one who died did. So they're doing some things, but they're not following it exactly.
What do you think about that? So, because we have talked a lot on this podcast about how people take a lot of comfort in knowing that they're doing what that person would have wanted, which I think is wonderful and one of the great things about pre-need. But the sort of other side of that maybe isn't so great sometimes is that people are then prescribing to rituals that may have made sense to the person who died, but of course the person who died isn't here anymore, right? And so do you feel that leads to perhaps some families feeling disenfranchised or feeling like there isn't the value of ritual that isn't there for them?
I'd say yes. I think that's a common feeling. I think the importance of the funeral director is to help those families, to guide them through that. So if the funeral director isn't aware of what their loved one's needs are, if they learn about them, and that all comes with experience, that comes with meeting various families from different backgrounds, that comes from going to different services and learning about the cultural needs and the traditions and the rituals that they follow. And everyone is going to be a little bit different, but I think they find comfort knowing that the funeral director can help them when they don't actually really know, and can help sort of follow those traditions that might be lost or getting lost. Yeah,
and I think too, a good reminder for us on the who are helping families to remember that just because there's a prearrangement in place and that's prescribed, not to absolve yourself of that responsibility of talking to the family to make sure that there's an alignment. And if there's not an alignment, to be able to have courage to have those conversations to say, okay, so we can do some things a little bit different, right? We can still honor mom's wishes, but we can also make sure that the needs of you and your and the extended family are being met.
Yeah, I certainly don't want people to feel uncomfortable trying to lay their loved one to rest, but there are certain things that they just aren't aware of because they don't know. So we're here to guide them, and we're learning at the same time sometimes. So I don't think there's any harm in saying to a religious leader or to an MC or celebrant, I'm not really sure, can you help me? And then you help the family that way as well.
Yeah. It's so interesting to think. So let's talk a little bit, like what I find interesting about all of this is that so much of what has shaped the evolution of funeral service in North America has been driven by the communities, right? I think often, I've said this before on the podcast, often we think that we created all of that. We in the funeral profession think, oh, we created this, whatever it is today, right? But so everything that we do today was driven by responding to the needs of people in the community. And that's really kind of this the superpower that I think our members have is responding to that. So when you look at that sort of from the past to the future, what are the rituals that you think are the ones that have been most enduring and do you think we should continue as a profession to be able to uphold?
Well, I think, even if the ritual or tradition has changed, something should be there. So we can create new ones. We don't necessarily have to keep with the old tradition, but certainly with faith-based families, there's going to be some traditions and rituals that will always be fairly similar. But we have, with the evolution of time from the 60s, 70s, 80s, things became more kind of free. Things became more
like
personalized.
Less prescriptive? Is that what you mean?
More personalized, more celebratory. I don't think you see the same, although the events are sad and somber, you don't see that same kind of somberness sometimes, even in the most tragic of deaths. So we have the celebration of life. I don't think those terms were used back in the 50s.
Certainly not in the Victorian era.
No, it's definitely
there was
not
no
then.
celebrating going on.
No, but I think that's where, that evolution has happened. And I think that the acceptance of cremation even has been very, a huge difference from how things were done previously. This, with cremation, you take away the procession. Sometimes
it's like this idea that if there's cremation, then there's nothing else.
No service,
right?
yes. And that, that's not the case. Cremation is just a form of disposition. It doesn't mean it's the form of service. So, but I think that so much has evolved with how the world really evolved. And as I said before, just becoming a little more personalized, more freedom to choose what you actually want. There's certainly more options. There used to probably be just an individually owned funeral home. Now you have so many more providers to pick from. So,
and then so many more options in terms of product and all of the things that you can do. I want to go back, though, to talk about something that is possibly a little bit contentious, maybe. And this, what you had talked about with the sort of rise or the greater frequency of celebrations of life, which I think bringing the I feel like loss is a time for both celebration and for recognition of extreme sadness of what's happening, right? And the tragedy, especially in some certain circumstances where it is very tragic, although every death really is a tragedy. And what I worry about in the movement towards celebration is that we don't also take the time to recognize the sadness, right? That we
skip over that part.
That we skip over the part of recognizing with the family, this is this horrible, this sucks terribly what has happened to you, right? Keeping that reality part of, I worry a little bit that are we just trying to gloss over or make it more comfortable? But I love the fact that we have more celebration and more laughter in our in funerals, because of course laughter can be released as well. So where are you landing on that? Do you share my concerns, or do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would love that every family had a private viewing, and then off they do the celebration. That's fine. But viewings even are becoming less and less common. Embalmings are becoming less and less common because of this direct to crematorium or direct cremation, and then let's have something celebratory. So, I mean, if I had it my way, it would be everyone has some form of a ritual or tradition, and then after that you can do whatever you want.
I've told all my friends that when they come, that yes, they can have a good time and laugh, but I want some serious crying going on. I want people to be sad that I'm no longer there.
Yeah, and I mean, not to sound crazy, but when I have a service in a facility, whether it's our chapel, whether it's at a church or another event center, and I start to see the crying, I almost feel like we did it. This is happening. And that's not to be, like I said, not to sound crazy, but when you see those tears because they've been held in and the people have been so focused on ticking every box and making sure that everything was done properly, once they have that release, this is the beginning now of their grieving. So I'm so surprised that so many people can walk into a funeral home and make arrangements without literally breaking down at the door. I've not been in that position yet, but for the last 20 years I've been helping families, and I just find that to be the most courageous and brave thing that people can do, is just walk through the door, even picking up the phone.
It's so interesting. I found myself in that position. My dad passed away last year in the spring. And your lifetime funeral director, my dad was a funeral director, our whole family sort of, it's all especially funeral director in a small town, it's all consuming, right? And of course, my dad didn't have anything planned, but
how ironic is that?
Why do that when your daughter has a career in pre-need, right? We had so many conversations about it anyway. But I remember a moment at the arrangement, and of course the team was amazing at the funeral home, and it was just as hard. I recognize it was just as hard for them, right, as it was for us. He probably spent more time with them over these lifetimes than with us, right? Dear. And so but I remember thinking, if it's this hard for me who knows everything about, these steeped
all
in
the
it
ins
for
and outs.
50 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
How devastating it must be for people who have never experienced it before.
But on that note, how lucky are we to be so privileged to help those families?
Sure.
Like, what a gift to be able to have been given to serve families who put so much trust in a total stranger to help them. That's pretty beautiful.
That is very beautiful.
And we're very lucky. Yeah. Anyone, not just our province, but anywhere who acts in funeral service, and any of the parts of funeral service, transfer staff, administration staff, the hostess who pours the coffee, everyone has an impact on a family. Yeah. And I just feel so lucky to be a part of that.
Yeah, that is so beautiful and so well said. Thank you for that. Okay, before we close off, so we have about 5 minutes left, I want to talk a little bit about some of those traditions that have endured. And one of the ones I find most interesting, it's almost like it's having a little bit of a comeback now. So in Victorian times, it was very common for people to take parts of a person, right? So like a lock of hair, and to create jewelry from that, right? So we know that they would create bracelets, or they would hold a lock of hair in a locket. And while that tradition hasn't necessarily, that doesn't necessarily continue, what I'm starting to see that's super interesting with the next generation, we saw this with the grandkids for my dad, is the return of jewelry. So one of the things that was really important to surprisingly all of the grandchildren, and I'm a Gen Xer, and so I'm like, whatever, who needs jewelry? Like, I'm just so cynical with all of this stuff. But the kids were like, and they're all older kids. They really wanted to have. They got the thumbies, the fingerprints. Some of them got rings. Some of them got bracelets. Right. Some of them got like a little pocket knife. So important to them, and I find that really curious that there's almost like a return to that. What are your thoughts around it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of interested families in those options.
Or keeping like a portion of the cremated remains in a locket.
So keepsake or jewelries. We work with a company who solidifies cremated remains.
Okay, we got to talk. So for all of our folks who are listening who are in the funeral profession will know exactly what that means.
Yes.
So
for those who aren't, people,
explain that a little bit.
So this company called Parting Stones, they make the cremated remains into these small stones, rocks, 40 to 80 stones per family member, and it's just a great way. As a funeral director working with cremated remains, I find that it's a clean way to give families a part of their loved one. They can take them to the lake, they can take them around traveling, they can paint them, put them in the garden. So a very nice option. The diamonds that you can make out of cremated remains, also a very nice option. So they can take
cremated remains,
yes,
and process them to turn them into a diamond.
Grow them into a diamond. Yeah. What are some other ones? Glass blown items, candle
I just heard about that. Yeah,
beautiful.
When I was in Alberta.
Yeah, beautiful.
Amazing.
I mean, for me, I don't believe in separating ashes personally.
Yeah.
But when my grandmother passed away, we did the DNA banking.
Okay.
So I have her capsule of DNA.
Tell our folks a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so post-mortem, so after death, you can have DNA preserved and purified in a capsule, and you can use that for anything you want, whether it's ancestry, just to have a blueprint of your loved one, or to do any genetic or hereditary disease testing. Now, I've not done anything with it because I also just like to live day by day and see what happens, but it was a part of my grandmother that I wanted to have, but I don't believe in separating her, so. Yeah.
One of the things that one of my son's friends did when his grandfather died is he had a portion of the cremated remains that were incorporated into tattooing.
Oh, I've heard of this.
And had his his grandfather's cremated remains that are now part of his body.
Well,
it's just amazing.
There's also vinyl records. You can make cremated remains into. I mean, there's so many things, and the technology is great. The QR codes on the markers, the AI. I don't know if I'm into the AI stuff.
I know, we should do a podcast just on that, right? Like, I know we do not have enough time, but that is such an interesting topic to go into, right?
Yeah.
The idea that, I mean, I kind of like the idea that I can continue to lecture my children after I'm gone.
Oh boy.
Like, super cool.
I don't think anyone wants to hear my voice when I'm gone.
Oh my goodness. It's just, I think what is pervasive as we look back over time, and you can even go back millennia to the records of how how society cares for its dead. One of the things I think that is universal and pervasive throughout all of that time is that need for a ritual, a way of holding on to the person in some way. And now I think what's amazing is that there's just so many amazing options around that you can get, that make sense for you, right? Like the fact that you say, hey, I'm not really into this piece, but I really love this piece. And now the fact that people can talk about and have all of the options so that they can do something that's really meaningful for them, I think it's
a great thing.
It bodes well for the future.
It sure does. It sure does.
So that ends our episode.
Thank you.
I feel like
that was wonderful.
We'll have you back and we'll start talking about AI because that is like super cool.
Okay, I'll be ready.
Thank you so much for joining us, Athena.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, just wonderful to have you here in such a fun conversation. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for this episode of Digging Deep. As we've discussed today, Deathcare service has never been static. It is continuously evolving in its response to shifting values, new technologies, and the deeply personal ways that people wish to honor their loved ones. And that universal need that all of us have that is very, I think, innately human to remember and honor the people that we love in a way that just makes sense for us. Our profession adapts not just to trends, but to this timeless need for meaning, connection, and care. If you found today's discussion valuable, please be sure to follow, leave a comment, and share the podcast with your colleagues or with someone in your family or a friend that you think might find it valuable. Your support helps us to continue to bring important conversations like this to the profession and to the public. Until next time, I'm Heather Kiteley. Keep on digging deep.